Thank you for tuning in to the new episode of the Mindful Steward podcast. I just recorded an episode with my friend Sirena Abalian. I first met her probably about 6 or 7, maybe 8 months ago. We kind of connected based on the topic of mindfulness and meditation. But since that time, she has hosted and organized a whole series of events in the community, meditation events and sustainable living events. With a pretty interesting group of speakers and people who are involved. And she's actually started her own podcast called Consciously Sassy, where she talks about pretty similar topics to what I tend to chat about on here. So I feel like this episode has been a long time in the works. We finally managed to set up a time, and what we spoke about ended up being a lot about sustainability, some biohacking, which is kind of a new term for me, and I guess we got into mindfulness as well. She really has a lot of insightful things to share, so catching up with her and having meaningful chats is always a cool thing. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Again, if you haven't heard of this show before, basically I am all about meditation for performance. It's not really about being strict with meditation, but it's just about the benefits that it can have for your mind and your lifestyle. So one thing I do have is a free meditation that I recorded with Michelle Pound. That is available on my website, themindfulsteward.com, if you do sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter really is nothing. I don't spam anyone. I think once every 3 to 6 months, I just send out the top performing podcast episodes and articles. So you get a free meditation, and I'm going to be sending out a lot more free meditation resources as well. And it includes a couple little ebooks that I created. So without further ado, I'll get this episode started, and definitely give Sirena a follow if you are interested in learning more about what she's up to. She has a lot of good content coming out all the time. I did an episode with my friend Ross, and it was so tight for time that we just went to the library near his work and just recorded it in there.
Yeah.
And neither of us had like a Toronto ID, so you can't actually rent. So we had to, I don't know how we did it, but we somehow made it work.
Yeah.
Like I think we lied to the lady or something like that.
It's a white lie, it's fine.
Yeah. A lie to use a library space that no one's using.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're being productive.
See, and now I'm more, I'll consider using a library space now that you've mentioned it to me, but I''ll do it legally.
Yeah.
And so...
You have a Toronto license?
No, I don't have a Toronto license, but I have a library card.
Oh, okay.
I have like...
Yeah, that's what you need. You need a license or a Toronto library card. But you also need a Toronto ID to have a library card.
I have OHIP. I have my...
You have OHIP? How do you have OHIP?
I'm a Canadian citizen.
Really?
Yes, I've told you this before.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a Canadian citizen. I've had OHIP since I got here, basically.
Okay.
I haven't had to use it, but...
So you're planning on staying here?
Yeah, I think I'll stay here for the next 2 years. My sister will hopefully come to university here too. Not this coming year, but next year. And then I think after that, then I'll definitely be ready to leave. Just for like a bit.
Yeah.
But...
That's what a lot of people do, though. They come here, enjoy it, and
Yeah.
kind of feed off everything that's happening here, and then they leave.
Yeah, I would definitely see myself coming back, because it's just so close to all of my family and whatnot. But, I mean, there's so much to see. Like, there's...
So you wouldn't go and live in Boston again?
No.
Okay. Where would you go?
I want to go to Australia. I want to go so bad.
You're going to do the work visa thing?
So bad. So that's on the plan.
I don't think you would regret that.
No.
I don't think anyone ever regrets it.
Anyone ever. If anything, it's just the people who regret it are the Australians who move here.
They regret it?
I
don't know.
I don't know. Probably not, but definitely their first winter I have like a couple of good Australian friends right now, and they are just...
Okay, well, they're experiencing winter here.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking of in BC. Like, I don't know if you've been to BC, but so many Australians are in Whistler and Banff, and they love it, though.
Yeah, they love it there. Well, it's so temperate. It's so mild there.
Yeah.
But here, no, you're asking for it. It's might as well be New York or Montreal. Like, it's cold and nobody likes it. But.
Yeah. Plus, you can't really ride down mountains and enjoy it in the same way. It's not the same. You can go skating outside, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Pretty much.
They don't got nothing else here.
Pretty much.
They have everything else down there. I don't know why we don't all move there.
I would love to move there.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like I will one day.
Everyone says they're like, the second you go, you're never going to want to come back. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, great. So be prepared.
I know. It happens to me every time I go there. I still have always thought in the back of my head that I'll end up there.
Yeah.
I'm just loving what's going on here right now.
Yeah. Well, Australia's not going anywhere. It's always going to be there. Global warming is a shit show, but it's not, it's too big to sink for now, or to drown, however islands do their thing. Like, Italy's going. Italy's next.
Italy's next?
Yeah.
Why?
What's that city with all the canals and stuff?
I have no... Oh.
The one, is it Florence?
I have no idea.
Vienna? I don't know.
It might be
You know
Vienna.
what I'm talking about,
I know
though,
the
right?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where
Everyone's on the gondolas?
Yeah.
That
they got
one's
the
going
boats
under.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a good segue.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. Good job.
I do this too. I know how to help you out.
You can tell you have a podcast.
Yeah, right. So true.
So what's the deal with global warming and what's the deal?
Oh, what's the deal? Okay, well,
because I want to talk to you about
yeah.
sustainability.
Yeah.
I feel like you're a good person to talk to about
Thank
that.
you. I would love to share everything that I know. Just open the vault of information.
Awesome.
I shouldn't call it global warming. That's an incorrect term. It's climate change is the correct term, I guess. Because it's not just like the warming of the globe. That's not the only thing that's happening. In terms of what it is and how it's going, it's not going too well. It's whether people would like to agree with it or not, like, you can deny it as much as you want, but it has not only been scientifically proven, but people are really seeing the effects of it. And it's caused by humans, whether we like to believe it or not. So it's an anthropogenic change in our climate and environment and weather. The way that scientists are looking at it right now is that we really only have about a decade before we hit this sort of tipping point where it becomes virtually impossible for us to A, turn things around, or B, to slow things down at all. So right now, a lot of our it's a scary number. It's a very small number. Like 10 years is a small number.
Yeah,
10 years
terrifying.
fly by.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. It's very depressing. Sitting in lecture for the past 2 years has been very depressing. But I'd like to think that I'm a climate optimist, as they call it. And I think that's really the only way you can look at it, because if you stay in a very cynical mindset, then, I mean, sure, just keep doing what you're doing. Drive capitalism to the ground and just watch it blow up in your face.
So why are you optimistic about it? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not. I'm just curious about your reasons.
Turn you into an optimist. Well, I'm an optimist, I feel like, for two main reasons. One, because I feel like I have to be. Because, again, I think if you look at a situation like what we're in right now and you see it at a point of despair and hopelessness, then you're not going to be productive about it. But looking at something and believing that it can change, or having faith in the fact that we can actually do something about it, gives you that, like, fire in order to want to create that change, in essence. And then at the same time, because I just would like to have more faith in us as humans and know that, generally in particular times in crisis, people have risen to the occasion. And at least in the last, decade, it's become trendy. And while, that's a whole other conversation of whether, the trendiness of the word sustainability and, like, eco-friendly and recycling and all this stuff is helpful or hurtful. At the end of the day, it is on people's mind. Like, it's not awkward to be sitting in a coffee shop and having a conversation about waste, or, to kind of, like, shit talk your friend and say, like, oh, you're using a plastic straw. Have you thought about that? Like, save the sea turtles, which I hate when people say that. But I think it's a topic of conversation that people are feeling more comfortable having right now. And I think that's optimistic at all, because I think the second that it moves from the private sphere of, like, being in the scientific world and being left up to politicians, and now we're actually wanting to learn about it and talking about it, I think that's enough to be happy about, because then you can have longer conversations, you can change people's mind, you can do the whole
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say, like, I think humans are really good at solving problems last minute. I've heard this over and over from people who lecture about basically global warming or climate change. I should probably start calling it by its proper name. But yeah, they talk about how humans rise to the occasion all the time, but it's always last minute. It's like the common theme, which is the problem.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm going to ask you in a second, like what kind of technologies are happening. I don't know if you know that. I feel like there are some things that are actually really interesting. Like I heard about this thing in Finland or Sweden where...
By the way, those countries are freaking amazing. We need to all pay attention to what they're doing because they're all completely right. Anyways,
yeah, they're doing amazing things. Like things. I forget what it was...
They deserve all the awards. Like they got it going on.
Yeah, and I think they already have it figured out. And then everyone else is just going to figure it out last minute.
Copy and paste.
Yeah. But I mean, it's cool seeing it become such a normal topic. Because I mean, when I guess I've been really obsessed with snowboarding since I was like a little kid. It was like my entire life. And obviously snowboarders care about snow. And in places like Ontario, where we're getting less and less snow every winter, people really care about it. So it's something that all my friends, like my social circle has basically been obsessed with that topic since I was like super young. So I've always been super conscious of it, but you go everywhere now and it's like, it was never on products before, you know, it was never a business strategy to promote social consciousness. Maybe it was in other ways. But yeah, I mean, there's so many neat things happening. I feel like you know way more about that than me probably.
I mean, it's just... It's something like for example, I have no idea. I've never done any winter sports ever besides like ice skating. But so I would not know the difference between real snow and fake snow and how that affects the way that you get to enjoy that activity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's interesting is that same narrative where the people who are experiencing this change is occurring is not becoming like widespread enough. So I guess your situation would be like very like simple and small, but it's still major because it's talking about the fact that our climate is changing so much that we can no longer enjoy the activities that we did based on the fact that it's dependent on weather. And then going more on like the much more intense spectrum of that, we now have climate refugees. So it's human beings in various communities and populations who are being driven out of their homes because they can no longer live there, because the conditions are not livable, or because other companies are forcibly moving them out, and then all due to, you know, effects of climate change. So, but those people are seeing the differences in the way in which they farm or the way in which they fish or do their animal agriculture, and that's been so distant from us, at least in the Western world, where, you know, all of our food comes from the grocery and we don't have to really worry about, you know, our high-rise buildings falling because of erosion or something of that sort. You know what I mean? Like, we're very solid here and everything just feels so distant. So when we experience smaller changes, like, oh, this isn't... Can you guys call it fresh powder? Like, is that a thing, or am I just making that up? I'm just trying to be cool. Like,
yeah, that's more of, you get that in the mountains.
Okay, so pretend.
But yeah.
But that's something that you guys are seeing and experiencing because you're out in nature and whatnot. But still, that even is distant from maybe what people in the city are experiencing. So that's one of the biggest things, is that these stories aren't being shared, and that it's not becoming an imperative issue, like you said, where we're really good at fixing things right before, like, the volcano erupts, sort of thing. And on top of that, we're really good at Band-Aid solutions. And part of what's gotten us here is because of constantly Band-Aiding everything and hoping that one day, like, the stitches won't just burst. But, you know, it's come to a point where when you wait, it's like penning in a paper last minute. It's so much better when you spend, you know, the time that your professor allotted you to do it, actually writing it, like, day by day, you write a little bit more, you get to edit it as you go, versus writing it 5 hours before it's due. You're skimping out. You're cutting corners. And that's the same exact thing that's happening right now.
You're risking it, too.
Exactly, yeah.
You're risking a horrible grade. You don't really have time to go over it and patch up the problems, you know?
Nope. No. So that's one of my biggest fears now too, is because it's so topical and such a trendy conversation right now to be more sustainable and more ethical. And again, those words don't really have concrete definitions, and that's part of the problem. But I totally lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Because I was thinking about because I had this conversation with someone else about the definition of sustainability. But oh yes, so I feel like what's going to end up happening is we're going to come up with a solution that kind of softly, gives a soft landing to the problem, but then underneath it is this massive new issue that's going to come from it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm hoping that's not the case.
I'm hoping that's not the case, but I think that's going to be the case if we don't think methodically and put this idea of longevity to our solutions, because a Band-Aid only lasts a couple of hours, or only lasts until you wash your hands and then it comes off.
Yeah.
Even the waterproof ones or the waterproof ones, okay? Yes, let's think long term. Let's put a waterproof Band-Aid on, but then those suckers, you can never take them off, and then they leave stains on your skin, they're problems. And this Band-Aid analogy is fantastic.
I was gonna say bit of a stretch, but I mean it works.
Hey, it works in my mind.
Yeah. I know it's interesting, to even relate it back to snowboarding. I mean, I'm not going to make this political. But it surprises me when people deny that this is happening. I even have, this story is just one that I have in my real life experience, besides noticing less snow and shorter snowboard seasons in Ontario.
Yeah.
But I used to go to this snowboard camp when I was a kid. I went a few times. It was at the top of Whistler, or Blackcomb, right beside Whistler. And it's in the summer, because there's a glacier up there, and they basically make a snowboard park, and people go and, I don't know, practice for winter. And a couple years ago, they had to close it because the snow is just so shitty up there now.
Wow.
So that's just since I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's I don't know, 10 years. It was a 10-year time span before, less than that. It was 8 years after I went, and it just shut down because they just don't even have enough snow up there anymore. So it's scary. But one thing, I wrote an article about this. It was one of the first articles I ever wrote when I was getting really into writing. But I was in Costa Rica, or I was living in Central America for winter, and those places are beautiful and awesome, but there's garbage everywhere. In developing nations, there's garbage everywhere. A lot of people take trips, like you were saying, you're going to Bali. You're already pretty conscious of it, but a lot of people go on trips to those places and they come home completely awakened to how big the problem is. Yeah. And it's not even those people's fault. They literally don't have garbage disposal. They don't even, they're not educated about, they don't know the problem with just throwing garbage on the ground. They don't watch TV where they don't have TV, you know what I mean? They live really simple lives.
Right.
They don't get that info directly given to them about how it's affecting everything.
Right. And if anything, I just feel like the Western culture has glorified plastic, just, because that's basically what all of our trash is made up out of. I was talking to a friend, and I was like, do you think is it worth even me bringing a reusable water bottle? Because I don't want to constantly have to drink out of plastic water. But because their filtration is so different there, everyone always gets Bali belly, and you have to be so careful when you're drinking water because it's sanitized differently than what we're used to, so it's not drinkable for us. And when my friend turned to me and she's like, nah, babe, you have to drink from plastic water bottles, or you make sure that everything you have comes, is imported. And that was just, wild. I'm not excited for that. I'm not looking forward to that. But
well, could you use a life straw? Have you ever heard of life straws?
I have heard of life straw.
I usually bring life straws in all my trips.
That's a great idea. I don't know, where can I get one?
Mac.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, they're
okay.
$30 at Mac. I bought my sister one because she's in Asia right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can trust them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it gets rid of 99.9.
Okay.
I've drank a lot of water in third world countries through life straws.
Okay.
I just bring a Nalgene and a life straw.
Yeah.
So,
okay, good.
Unless the water's green or something, be
right,
careful
right.
if it's really dirty.
We're not gonna be drinking from the rivers. But
yeah, but you could.
But you could.
That's half the point of those
That
things.
is the point. That is the point. We just have very sensitive bellies as Westerners.
Yeah.
Because we're just, which is ridiculous because all of our food is fake. So we shouldn't have sensitive guts. Like, we should just be, well, humans, in my opinion, should just be like bionic. But anyways, that's more about biohacking that I don't know about yet.
So biohacking.
I know.
Well, I literally listened to your episode about biohacking, and I had never I've had never really heard that term, but I do that.
Well, that's the thing.
I just do that in general.
Exactly.
It's like a lifestyle that I'm already living.
Right, because you're basically living with this idea that your body is a temple and that we should be paying attention to how we treat it in order to live a long, fruitful life. Now we've come to the point where we have to give it a name so we can study it, so that we can be like, oh yeah, I biohack now. Like, I use various biohacking tips. And I'm like, no, you mean you just like get 8 hours of sleep and like, you know, pay attention to what you put in your body and you consciously move your body. Yeah. Anyways, but
I know, I left that episode actually thinking, I don't really know what biohacking is yet. And then I Googled it, and it was the same kind of really general terms. I was like, oh, this is just like a trendy new health term.
Exactly.
Not that it's bad.
No,
obviously,
it's good.
Everyone should biohack more, probably.
Yeah. So we can all live like those blue zones. I'm obsessed with that. I think that's so interesting.
Yeah. I know, the blue zones, like the Corn Islands of Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And that one place in Italy.
Yeah, see, I've only researched
really
like Loma Linda in California, and then there's
California has a place.
California has a place. Apparently, they're more like religious based, but they're
okay.
like their longevity's fantastic.
Okay.
And then there's another one in Japan. I forget what it's called.
Oh, it's on the tropical island.
I believe so.
Yeah. I watched a show about that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, I watched a documentary on it.
Yeah.
I think it's called Happy. On
yeah.
Netflix. Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah. But cool. But those guys, for example, like they know how to live, and they understand that, like, you know, they are one of the biggest things about biohacking that she did bring into it that I feel like isn't normal is this idea of like grounding, which people I feel like right now think of it in a very spiritual sense. But in essence is not. It's basically the idea that your body is made of the same matter in nature that, you know, the earth is made of, and that, like, when was the last time you touched earth?
Like with my bare feet?
Yeah, like with your bare anything.
Do my plants in my apartment count?
I'm gonna say no for this sake, no.
Okay.
Like, physically touch the earth.
Before winter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's wild because it basically, like, removes us from nature, and that's basically what we've brought ourselves to become, because we've made ourselves think that humans come first and then it's Earth, or that Earth is a home for humans, but it's not. There's actually this really interesting hypothesis, which I totally believe. It's called the Gaia hypothesis, and it was, I forget, what was his, something Lockhart or Lockland or something. Anyways, he basically had this idea, or this hypothesis, that the earth will reach a tipping point where it will literally, like, press the eject button on humans. So with this whole idea of, you know, save the animals, save nature, save earth, save our ecosystems, if anything, it's almost like we need to save the human race, because the earth doesn't care at this point. Like, the earth is basically changing due to what we're doing right now, and it's basically putting us to extinction, is what it's trying to do.
That's the ironic thing, eh? We're just only doing it to ourselves. The earth will be fine. Exactly.
But we never take the time to switch the perspective on that. Like, there's this thing called the orbital perspective, I believe that's what it's called, where when astronauts go out into space, they look back on the earth, and they finally see it as this home, as this entire entity that is basically semi in the control of our hands, but also isn't, obviously, because it's like a whole, you know, creature within itself. And when they return home, they have this, like, extreme sense of gratitude and understanding that they are obviously so minuscule. But the fact that all of us minuscule individuals have created this insane ripple of change that's occurring at an exponential rate at this point is what every human being needs to understand in order for there to be like a very like go-getter, like let's put this on all of our agendas and let's do something.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how humbling that experience would be.
Right?
It would be amazing.
Right? And I find that you can understand that experience simply, at least for me, by grounding and understanding the fact that like there is soil underneath your feet, that it's supporting you and that it will always support you. You just have to understand what it needs in order for you to continue doing what you want to do. So this whole idea of like, when people look at like environmentalists, I guess they're like, oh, what are you, just anti-capitalism, anti-meat, anti-this? And I'm like, no, I think that humans are great and the things that we want to do is amazing and insane. Like we literally do the impossible every day, but there's a fine balance. Like in essence, it's almost like there should be this moderation in which we live in a capitalist society or whatnot. Or even when it comes around to like veganism, for example, like I have just switched to a plant-based, like a fully plant-based diet. And I wasn't when I met you. Like I was chilling. I've never really, like I thought about it, but I was like, oh, I could never do it. But I fully switched, and in my head, I've switched for, the earth. Granted, it's done amazing things for my health, but that's a whole nother story. I also love animals, great. But at the same time, I'm not, and people will always kind of shit on me for this, I don't fully believe that we're not supposed to eat other animals. I just fully believe that the way in which we're doing it right now is completely A, unethical, and B, completely unsustainable. So if we can kind of like slow down what we're doing, then we can continue to do it. So it's not, stop buying clothes or like stop buying new clothes or stop supporting these things or stop eating meat or stop doing all of this. Like, yes, we need to change our habits, but a lot of that just comes from slowing ourselves down. Yeah. So how can we be more zero waste? We can slow ourselves down by maybe not running to the convenience store and grabbing, rice in a plastic bag. Maybe we bring a mason jar that we already had from a can of, tomato sauce last week, and we just make the extra effort to keep that in our backpack, so when we stop by maybe a bulk barn or something, we just fill it up that way. Yes, super small things, one person at a time is only going to do so much, and that's a whole nother, I could just go forever, but like, because there's also this whole concept of individualizing climate change. And corporations are putting it onto us as humans, as individuals, to fix all of it. So that's where that plastic straw initiative came from. Don't have a plastic straw, save the sea turtles. Okay, great. I haven't had a plastic straw in I don't know how many years because I've been conscious of that. But that doesn't stop plastic straws from being manufactured. We need, government to make changes in order to make it permanent. And yes, pay, like, vote with your wallet and stuff, like it works. That's how we have, so much organic food on our shelves. But now that we have so much organic food on our shelves, the definition of organic is beginning to change, and it's beginning to become a little bit wishy-washy. And anyways, I just want to really long
what does that
tangent,
mean?
But
yeah, no, I have this show for people like you to talk. I have so many guests
like,
who come on.
I never talk about this kind of stuff because like it's all just in my brain.
Yeah.
And we don't discuss it in class or anything, so I'm always just like, oh, I need to share all of my information to everyone.
Yeah. No, it's good, honestly. Like,
but
the one thing that I find takes away from, honestly, things like veganism and environmentalism, like, I'm totally respectful of all those things. I would consider myself an environmentalist. I'm not a vegan, but I do recognize that it's a good thing. But there are a lot of people who take away from the power of those arguments by just being emotionally rash and also just their argument is basically just talking down the other side of the argument. Right. They don't have their own, they're not building up anything.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I'm met with that all the time.
Yeah.
When I talk about sustainable fashion or food, like those are the two main things that I care the most about. But anytime I bring it up, especially when I turned plant-based with my family, because we're culturally, meat is is a symbol of status in my culture. Like every single plate has some sort of meat or animal component to it. So going back, to home and being like, oh, I can't eat any of this. It causes a lot of looks, and it met with the whole, oh, well, you doesn't have, you don't get enough protein, or you're being ridiculous. Like, there's no, like, this tastes disgusting, or vegan food is gross. And it's like you said, it's always this like negative argument. And then, I had my uncle turn to me once and he's like, okay, so you're vegan, now what? He's like, now what? And I was like, well, I definitely know that my carbon footprint has decreased by a really large amount. So that's enough to keep me going. And then at the same time, I was like, I don't think I'll be vegan forever. I would like to incorporate, fish back into my diet or meat, and every so often. I don't miss it, to be honest with you. But at this point right now, I can't do that. I'm not going to sacrifice or I'm not going to, indulge myself on like, oh, but I just really crave the taste of it, or, just the, going to whatever restaurant I want. Like, okay, God forbid I can't go to one restaurant because it doesn't have any options for me. In the grand scheme of things, when I approach people and tell them in that way, where I go, just change a couple of meals a week. That even makes a difference, because animal agriculture is so like carbon emitting, and just completely it's one of the easiest ways to lower your carbon footprint.
Oh yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't know about that.
No.
About how bad it's. Well, beef is obviously the worst one.
Beef is the worst, and it's so funny because it's literally because of like their farts.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally,
I was hoping you were gonna bring that up.
Yeah, of course. So it's literally because of the methane that they produce on these massive fields, which then just increases the CO2 in our atmosphere. But on top of that, you think about how large a cow is. A cow needs X amount of land in order to graze and whatnot. And on top of that, they need so much more feed. And what's so funny is that all of our feed is corn or food that we could be eating. Like we grow plants to feed the cow.
Interesting.
Which then the cow has this meat protein that we see as more valuable as plant protein. But the cow only got to be so fat and delicious because it was eating plants.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
When you think of it in like that way, then it kind of breaks down that argument of like, you don't get enough protein. But aside from that, you can find these charts, and I think that one documentary that, I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio's documentary about climate change, I forget what it was called, but he broke it down really nicely, where he showed, cows are the number one, and then it would be like lamb, like sheep and whatnot, and then pork, and then chicken, and then down to plants. You see like the I can't think of like the scientific word for it, but you see the usage of land decrease as you go from cow to plant, or even cow to chicken. So chickens require a lot less land in order to be, bred and feeded and processed and whatnot. At the same time, it's also really sad the way that we now do commercialized butchery and farming.
Yeah, I know, it's freaky.
It's really freaky, and I don't recommend watching the documentaries if you're not ready to just go vegan overnight, because I didn't think it would do it to me, but it really did it to me.
I know. I have watched one of them,
yeah.
And I'm not a vegan.
How did you survive? I don't know what that
says about
You're just heartless, basically.
Maybe.
That's what it is.
Maybe.
Cold-hearted, cold-blooded. But
would you eat a burger or beef that has been grown in like a lab?
No, because it really freaks me out.
Just because of the weirdness?
Yeah, just because of the weirdness. Okay. Like, if you put a burger in front of me and you're like, this is your only meal for the next week, like, yes, I would eat it. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. To me, it's like...
That'll be normal one day.
What?
I think.
A lab grown?
Just eating steaks that was grown in a lab.
See, but I don't think that's any more ethical. Like, that's one of the things where I think that we're creating a problem that doesn't need... Like, we're creating a solution that is going to create a problem down the line.
Like what?
I don't know. And that's the thing, is like, I don't know. And we've had this thing where it's like called like the precautionary principle or the precautionary approach, where we often will create, policy or limitations for things as a precautionary approach, and then ends up either limiting what was actually happening, or it just ends up being like a moot point. For example, this is not environmental, but for example, When they tell you to turn your phone off when you're in the airplane,
yeah,
like that came from a precautionary idea of we have to ask everyone to turn their phones off because it might interfere with some sort of signal connection, something. But it's not really a thing. You know what I mean? Like, I've left my day.
I've never known the answer to that, but
well, it's, I mean,
I've always had that suspicion.
I'm like 99% sure on that fact. But going back to like the whole idea of like growing like lab grown meat, cool, yeah, great, but and then what? Like, do we really need meat that much that we have to like grow it? You know what I mean? Like,
but,
I often.
But in the big picture, if you're looking at how much resources that wastes,
right?
It will be so much less, won't it?
Right, it'll be so much less, but our overall consumption wouldn't decrease.
Probably
and
not.
That's the problem.
Probably not.
Is that even with the sustainable fashion movement, right? We're creating garments that are made of natural fibers, and the garment workers are being paid, fair trade wages, or being supported in different ways. Great, or we're using less water. Like, great, that's all fine and dandy, but that doesn't change the consumer behavior and habit behind it. It doesn't, just because I'm buying ethical clothing doesn't make me any more better of a human being sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Because if we still have this idea of overconsumption and over owning and whatnot, and not going back to this like circular economy, then it's almost a moot point. So as much as we could say, oh, we don't breed cattle anymore, sure, we're just making it in a lab, and we're still eating as much of it as we were before. And whether that has to do with our health or whatnot, because I'm positive lab-grown meat I'm sorry, but it must have some questionable aspects to it.
Well, it does right now, or else it would be like...
It'd be on market.
Yeah, we'd be able to eat it, but
right.
Clearly there are some things to work through for that. It's interesting, though. I have a few friends who... They were, like, hardcore vegans. Mm-hmm. My friend Ross, who I have an episode with, says it really well. He says that he was, like, a hardcore vegan. He would shame everyone who wasn't a vegan around him. That kind of thing. And
it's just not effective that way, I find.
It really isn't. But he basically studied nutrition. And then same with my other friend. It's just two friends of mine who have said this. But they are basically vegans, like almost entirely.
Yeah.
But they eat a little bit of fish and a little bit of eggs.
Yeah.
And they said that when they went to nutrition school, they kind of realized, like, okay, there's more to it. There are some things that you kind of can benefit from having, but
for sure.
But they still have cut out all those.
Exactly.
The meat.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly. And I find that I believe that in order for us as a collective, in order to move towards, or I guess move away from climate change, like move towards a more positive climate change, we have to find a way to do it sustainably. And by sustainable in this term, I mean something that we can continue to do that doesn't completely alter our lifestyle. It allows us to just slowly mold and shape our lifestyle into something that we can like do, and it becomes second nature. So, like you said, I'm not a strict vegan. I call myself plant-based because I know if I call myself vegan, I'm going to get, shamed. Because no, I don't ask what every ingredient is in everything. I don't ask if it's been put on the same grill as a burger was, or in the same fryer as, the chicken was, or whatever. Because, there's just different levels of extreme, and if you want to go that route, then all to you. I think that's great. But I'm trying to promote it in a way where I can, have you walk away, for example, like thinking twice about maybe purchasing all of the meat that you do at the grocery store. Where you're like, oh, you know what? Instead of a chicken curry, I'm going to make a chickpea curry tonight, and I'm going to get just as much protein as I would, except I'm also going to get a lot of fiber, and I'm going to, move the digestive system around, and it'll be even cheaper for me to buy it that way.
Oh, yeah.
So
I do that all the time.
Right.
Chickpeas are a gold mine.
Chickpeas are the vegans, like you said, gold. Like, I didn't realize that. But yeah, especially when they're on sale, like 99 cents a can. You can't go wrong.
I don't even buy the cans. I buy a giant bag.
Oh, yes, and then
for
soak
like
them.
$5.
Yeah.
And it's not even because I'm cheap. It's because I like that.
Yeah.
I eat fresh chickpeas in whatever meal I have every single day. You know, it's delicious.
But it is changing. It's becoming something that's, like I said, like Planta on Queen just opened. Have you been to the one in Yorkville?
I haven't, but it's literally right beside my work.
Yeah, I've been to the one in Yorkville. It has a very like bougie vibe, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tiny, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I always thought it was big.
What?
In my opinion, it seems like it's very like open.
Okay, maybe you're thinking of. Maybe I'm thinking of a different place. So. Anyways.
But so they just opened a location on Queen, which has like an Asian inspired menu, and I just went. I think it was. Oh yeah, I went last night, and I was blown away. It was so delicious, and it was packed in there. Like, people were, like, there was reservation lists, there's wait lists, people were just flooding to try this, like, brand new vegan food. And I bet you so much money that only 50% of the people in there were actually, like, vegans.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
But
I've gone to vegan restaurants multiple times.
Exactly, because it's food. You know, why do we, like, granted, we slap vegan on it so that we know, you know, the composition of the meal, but it's becoming a nicer thing when people aren't afraid of going to vegan places or like having vegan meals or seeing it as this like super earthy crunchy like because well, I mean I saw
thing,
that
right? Like
for the longest
I like to eat well.
Yeah, I
like to eat good, healthy, hearty food. Exactly. So I'm not opposed to a vegan restaurant.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm gonna go to a vegan restaurant and become a vegan, but they still have great food. Yeah, and you know that it's better for you than most other places.
And you know, asterisk, it's not always. Like, I will throw that out there because I know people will always like switch to a vegan diet, or like there's like those memes on Instagram where it says like vegan starter pack, and it'll be like Oreos and like all this junk food and whatnot, because junk food is primarily vegan. And there is a right way of doing it. I don't want to call it the right way, but there's a healthier way of doing it and a not so healthy way of doing it. Like when I was at Planta last night, I got basically deep fried broccoli and deep fried cauliflower. Like, it was like General Gao's chicken, but cauliflower form. Is that any healthier than having deep fried chicken? I don't really know.
Yeah.
Was it delicious? Absolutely. But at the same time, I can't say that it was, you know, this more healthy meal because it was vegan. Like, yeah, I think that's a conversation that needs to be like debunked as well, because you can be a vegan and just eat cereal for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Which is delicious.
True.
I'm not opposed to it.
With almond milk?
With almond milk, soy milk. Have you had cashew milk?
I have.
It's insane.
It's really good.
It's so good. Or now my new favorite, oat milk.
Oat milk.
Have you had oat milk yet?
No, I didn't even know that was real.
What?
Yeah.
Where have you been? Oh my god.
I don't know.
Okay,
oat milk? I don't eat cereal. That's the problem.
Well, okay, I don't put it in my cereal, but in my coffee, oat milk is delicious. Minor Figures is my favorite brand. If you see it, it has like it's like a white box with a blue stenciled like person in a duck costume. I think it's so random, but it's a great brand. They sell like CBD and stuff too. They're a really wild brand. They're cool. Yeah, okay, they're cool. Minor Figures, look them up.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind. So we're at like the 40-minute mark.
Hey,
so
nice.
This is almost perfect. I'm trying to keep them shorter and shorter. But so I guess I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
I know you are into meditation and mindfulness too.
Yeah.
What are your practices? What is your regular routine?
You know,
in terms of that sort of thing.
Right. I wish I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a regular routine. It's funny because I teach like meditation workshops and stuff now, which I love, but I guess my day-to-day routine is bringing mindfulness into my daily words and actions. So the ways in which I react to situations, or the way in which I carry like my physical being and body. And then of course being mindful of my thoughts. So while I'm not necessarily sitting and trying to clear my mind or do all this visualization stuff, that doesn't work for me, and it doesn't have to work for everybody. And that's one of the biggest things I preach, is that meditation is not just sitting cross-legged and not thinking of anything. It's not. Meditation is walking and being conscious of your heel touching the ground and then your toe touching the ground, and you know, that repetitive movement. Mm-hmm. Or meditation can look like you lying down with your legs up against the wall, and maybe listening to music and allowing that humming to do what it does. So I think figuring out what works for you and what you need on a daily basis is what I incorporate. But yeah, I've just become a lot more mindful of the way in which I talk to myself. So my inner dialogue has changed dramatically, and that's also like released me of all of my anxiety. Like I've healed myself.
Wow.
Yeah, no, genuinely have.
Wow.
So yeah,
Because I remember you talking about that a lot previously.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I up until very recently, I mean, I was a regular meditator, but I same kind of thing. I just meditated when I felt like I needed it. It was almost like a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah.
Kind of. It was like, okay, I'm stressed, I'll meditate now.
Right.
But like really recently I started meditating twice a day with a routine, like before I go to work.
I need to do that.
After work or before I go to bed, and holy shit, it's amazing. You are like so zenned out all day.
Yeah.
I would recommend that to anyone.
Yes.
You should totally try it.
Like
and it really changes the way you view it.
I completely agree with you. And I have every desire to try and do that. I just feel like such a hypocrite because I have difficulty finding a space that makes me feel safe and able to kind of turn off in that way. And because I haven't found that space yet in my home, which is usually where one meditates.
Yeah.
I try to incorporate it in other aspects, or when I'm with other people, like slowing my breath when I'm with other people, or kind of being conscious and like, I mean, it could sound weird, but like matching my breath with like, my friend who's sitting on the couch with me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that's kind of weird.
That does sound weird.
It does sound weird, but it's just another way of me being mindful in a way that makes me feel safe.
Yeah.
So.
No, fair enough. Like, I think just being conscious of your breath is like such a cool, like, it really is huge. Like,
changes everything.
Yeah.
Because our breath has everything to do with our nervous system and the oxygen that gets to our lungs and just absolutely everything. And we're always, especially where we live, like living in the city in Toronto, people are always like everyone takes like really short, very like chest breaths instead of taking these like deeper, longer, like I call them like juicy.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Juicy
like,
breaths.
Juicy belly breaths, like deep diaphragm belly breaths.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think breath work is going to be kind of like the biohacking of meditation. I think breath work is going to get all the people who look at meditation as this like Zen Buddha thing and they see it, they're like, can't relate to it.
Right.
Like, have you heard of Wim Hof?
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyways, he's a guy, exactly, this is a good example because he's blowing up he's kind of like a guru. He's almost like a guru a meditation guru type guy among men. Like, men find him really cool. Okay. But what he's doing is basically meditating.
Yeah.
But just because he's this cool, tough guy and he calls it breath work instead.
Yes.
It's got this whole other... The perception is completely different.
Right, which is like amazing. Let's just change it however we need to. And that's why when I do teach my meditation courses, that's the number one thing that I try to drive home, is that it is not supposed to look like what you think it looks like. And that there is absolutely no right or wrong way of meditating. The only wrong way to meditate is to resist. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I have to come to one of your things sometime.
Yeah. I would love that.
I keep hearing about these all the time. Cool. Well, that might even be a good point to end it on.
Yeah, I'm down.
So I'll just ask you, like, I ask everyone this at the end. I feel like it's a good closing question, but I guess there are multiple closing questions I kind of like. Well, what is inspiring you these days? You're doing a lot of cool things. You have a lot of different topics. So what are the things that you're following and who and...
Ooh, I like that question. So someone who has been really, really inspiring me that I really look up to right now is Joe Holder, and he is a Nike master personal trainer. He owns a nonprofit called Systems of Service, where he gives back to various communities in New York specifically right now. He is completely plant-based and has this like amazing idea and calls his like community like the plant-based gang. And he like has all this swag and stuff for it. But on Instagram, he's known as Ocho System, and Ocho stands for one can help others and others can help one.
I love that.
Yeah, I know, right? And he always puts like the infinity sign next to it. So it's basically, again, like this whole idea of like circularity where you give and you receive, and that's how it works. And he does that, and he's always posting. just different information about whether it's about like functional movement and mobility or like the books on mindfulness and meditation that he's reading. He's just like a vat of information, and he's always traveling, and just like he just seems so lighthearted and grounded, and always has like the goofiest smile on his face. Or he's like 4 a.m. in the gym, and just being like, gotta move your body, like you just gotta. He's jet lagged, flying from who knows where. But yeah, he like trains Victoria's Secret models and like Naomi Campbell and stuff, and Hoodie Allen, and yeah, he's a really cool guy.
Amazing.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, I'll give him a follow.
Yeah, do it.
All right. Since you have your own podcast,
that I do.
How can people find you?
Well, you can find me anywhere as long as you type Consciously Sassy, which is the name of my podcast. Yes, we are Consciously Sassy, and we ask sassy questions. But no, I have similar, just super relaxed, informal conversations with human beings who are super passionate about what they do. And in essence, we are able to discuss how we can become a more conscious collective of humans, what that means, how we can move forward in not only our day-to-day lives, but again, as a collective and globally. Whether that's, environmentally speaking or spiritually or biohacking or whatnot. I just try to find people who are just eager to share what they have and know that there is a different way of living our life instead of just, the way that society tells us to, a way that's more conscious.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining for this episode.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we figured out a time.
Yeah, finally. That turned out great.